First day has been concluded at the Munich Open. What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We'll go over those first round matches and take a look at a few second round picks. Let's take a look at the draw. Here's a look at Zverev's half of the draw, and only one second round match to talk about here, and that is Bublik van de Zandschulp against Francisco Cerundolo. Zandschulp able to get through Husler in a tough match. We talked about head-to-head there. I believe was 1-1. So Husler's given him a couple of tough matches previously. So Zandschulp understood that this was not going to be an easy affair here. He wins the first set 7-6. Husler had a break in the first and was up 2-0 in the breaker, but Zandschulp just a little bit too much there. I liked the aggressive style that he came in with. He's really taking it to Husler. Didn't really see a lot of offense from Husler. He does return the second serve very well. He's inside the court, takes it very early, is able to put you on the defense, but other than that, I thought Zandschulp really was the offensive player for about 75% of these points. Just impressive stuff from him. Second set, Zandschulp gets a double break and is up 5-2 and serving for it, and he gets broken. We talk a little bit about the nerves with Bublik van de Zandschulp, and we saw them. They were clearly present in that Novoni match in Bucharest, the one that he lost, where he honestly played the better tennis for about 2.5 sets, just not able to get the win there. And we kind of saw it a little bit today. That offense for the last 2 or 3 games where he was closing out the match, that offense just disappeared. He retreated back about 10 feet behind the baseline, started rolling the ball up super high, and waiting for Husler to miss. And Husler gave him enough misses where it was good enough for Zandschulp to hang on. He got broken serving for the set, but then breaks Husler to win the match 6-3. But we just got to look out for things like that. It does concern me, obviously when you're picking him to win a bigger match, these are the things that you want to look for. Like, is he still playing his game that he was playing in the first set? No. He ended up retreating, becoming a little bit more defensive, and hoping that Husler would miss. And for him, you're playing up against a challenger level player. That's going to happen. Against someone like Cerundolo, that's not going to happen. So against someone like Novoni, that's not going to happen. So that to me is a little bit of a red flag when we're trying to pick Bublik van de Zandschulp to win a match. Francisco Cerundolo had a easy match against Nagal, and we broke down the match here for Cerundolo against Struff, and then Struff withdrawing last minute. I looked at the draw, I believe, last night, and I thought I had seen Struff, so he must have withdrawn this morning. And we definitely best wishes for Jan-Lennard Struff. He's had a very tough, I believe it was a hip injury that has sidelined him multiple times in his career for long extended periods. So hopefully that's not what it is. He would talk about it, that he couldn't even bend over and tie his sneakers. So hopefully that's not what it is. We're wishing him the best and recovery, and hopefully we see him soon. Cerundolo came out of this match, and you could tell, I feel like he was a little bit bothered playing Nagal, which, like most guys, you'd be like, okay, great, I'm playing a lucky loser that lost in the qualifiers. This is a big plus for me, but Cerundolo took a little bit, I think, to get adjusted to Nagal. And, we talk all the time, guys, about these players are creatures of habit. They like going to bed, thinking about who you're going to play, waking up and, having the game plan in mind, going to the courts, warming up, and then getting to the match. Here, obviously, Cerundolo's case, you wake up, you're told you're playing a totally different guy with a totally different style. So now you have to readjust your game plan and your mindset. Cerundolo obviously able to get through this match 6-2, 6-2, but it wasn't a pretty match. Like if you watch that, there are a lot of errors on both sides. Nagal just not able to hit enough aggression or anything to really bother Cerundolo. Like I don't think he was ever going to do anything to bother Cerundolo. Maybe at worst this would have been like a 7-5, 7-5 match, but I don't even see him being able to do enough to get a set off Francisco Cerundolo. Just watching this match though, and comparing it to what we saw from Bublik earlier, I was a little bit concerned that Cerundolo's forehand, it looks a little bit tentative, but it might have been, maybe the conditions were a little bit windy today, so maybe just the timing there. But he looked like he was making his forehands, but they just looked a little bit off to me. I'm not really sure what it was. It might have been maybe the way Nagal was hitting the ball, plus the conditions. So we'll see how he looks in this Bublik match. And let's take a look at their head-to-head, Cerundolo and Van de Zandschulp. 2-0 for Cerundolo. He got both wins last year in 2025, both on hard courts. One at Indian Wells, the outdoor hard courts, third round, 6-3, 6-4. And then the indoor hard courts in Davis Cup, he won 7-6, 6-1. Now, obviously, that booming forehand from Cerundolo is going to be a big advantage for him. If he can get that going, I think he's going to be in very good shape. I do like Bublik van de Zandschulp having the ability to have time to play a little bit more offense. We saw that today against Husler. He was, at least in the first set, he was able to play a little bit more offense coming into net. He has that all-around game that can kind of threaten you. So I know this has been two straight set affairs for Cerundolo, but in my opinion, I think Cerundolo is going to have to bring the A to A minus game tomorrow in order to beat Zandschulp. I don't think you want to be getting into a third set with him, and I don't think you want to be kind of playing some closer matches early on in this tournament. Bublik van de Zandschulp is 4-1 right now on the clay. He was 11-10 last year, 16-12 the year before. Cerundolo is 9-3 on the clay, 21-11 last year, 21-13 the year before. He's been pretty consistent with his wins. You look at in the last 5 years, 21, 21, 19, 25, 39 the year before that. He prefers the clay. But he has a game to adjust to a hard court, and he's had some success on the hard courts as well. But we see him having most of his success on the clay. I'm going to pick Cerundolo here. I think he's going to be able to up his game. I think he's going to be prepared. He's played Bublik twice before, so that definitely helps. Going out there, you know what to expect, you know what to do. He saw him twice last year. Even though it was on a different surface, there is that comfort where you don't really have to make many adjustments or kind of have a long 3 or 4 game feel out period where you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. He already knows that, so he's going to have a pretty solid game plan coming out here to play Bublik. I think Bodik's going to give him a good run for his money though, and I do worry. Obviously, one of the other reasons why I would pick Cerundolo, I do worry about Bublik in those tighter matches. I don't think this is going to be if Bublik wins this match, it's not going to be 3-3 or 2-2. It's going to be a tight 3-setter. So in those types of situations, I just feel like those nerves from Van de Zandschulp really do come through, and I think somebody like Cerundolo is going to take full advantage of that. I'm going to say Cerundolo wins this. I think it's going to be a 3-setter. I think Bodik's going to get his first set against him. He looked like the better player today for me, even though obviously Cerundolo had the more convincing score. I liked what I saw from Bublik up until the last 2 games, but I really liked what I saw. We'll see if he can translate that over against a much better clay court player. But for now, give me Cerundolo in 3 sets. And here's a look at Zverev's half of the draw. We did go over these matches in our first round picks and draw reaction videos. So if you want a little bit more in depth for these first round matches, definitely go over there. Everything's chaptered, so you'll be able to just click on that match and get the breakdown. But for now, I'll give you guys the cliff notes here. Zverev against Kecmanovic. This is going to be a very tricky match for Zverev, but I do feel like he's starting to right the wrongs. Had that first round match against Garin, able to win that match and get through against a guy that had a 2-1 head-to-head against him. Now he plays Kecmanovic, who beat him in Acapulco in the first round. That was a very tough back-and-forth match. I think Zverev's going to win this one in straights. I think he's going to come out with something to prove, and he's going to be hyper-focused because he knows the ability of Kecmanovic on any surface. Cobolli and Dedura, this was a switch out here. I think Dedura coming in as a lucky loser against Cobolli. I just don't see how Dedura is going to have an answer for the power of Cobolli. If he's able to maybe play a little bit more offense and get Cobolli defensively on the backhand side, maybe he'll have a chance. Dedura definitely likes the momentum from the crowd, so that'll be a big factor there. He's the type of guy that likes to raise his game. We remember last year in Munich, he had a nice win over Shapo in the first round. Even though it was a retirement from Shapo, Dedura able to use the crowd and get his energy going against a high caliber player. So maybe he could do that to take a set. I don't see him winning this match, though. Cobolli will advance there. Bergs and Topo. Topo, a regular on the Challenger Tour, hasn't really been able to advance. Comes in, I believe he was a lucky loser here, lost in straights in the first round of qualifying. Bergs, obviously, we've talked about his season so far has turned around a little bit. I think this would be a nice match to get started and get to the round of 16 of a 500 level tournament. He was able to get a win last week in Monte Carlo, or a couple of wins in Monte Carlo, so that's a good start for him to turn it around. He does prefer the clay maybe a little bit more than some of the other surfaces. I think he's going to win this match in straights. Kopriva and Engel. Engel obviously coming in, he will have the home crowd as well. But I think Kopriva is going to be a little bit too much. Engel's more of an aggressive type player. He likes to flatten the ball out. We saw him have success on the grass courts. I'm not sure how his game really does on the clay. So I'm going to trust the guy that has had a lot of solid clay wins this year in Vit Kopriva. He will advance to the round of 16 over Engel. Darderi and Zhang, we are now in a must-win scenario here for Darderi. He has to get this match done. Zhang is not an easy customer, though. We watched him go 2 breakers against Shelton in Houston, so he's had some very tricky matches against higher-level players. Obviously, Shelton, not a high-caliber clay court player, but we haven't seen the best from Darderi yet. Darderi used to be a guarantee to make it into the later rounds and quarters and semis. Now we're starting to question whether he's able to do that. So I'm gonna go with Darderi. I still feel like this is a must win for him. I think he's gonna win it in straights. Looking at the Zverev half overall, I really think Zverev will be able to get through Diallo. That was a nice win for Diallo today against Sachko. I had picked Sachko there. We'll talk about that match tomorrow once we get the Zverev-Kecmanovic match in. But good win for Diallo. And that really does open the draw up here for Zverev. I think he'll be able to get through Diallo pretty easily and get out to the quarterfinals, at least to face Cerundolo, where if Cerundolo's forehand is on, that's going to be a very tricky match for Zverev, but a good one for him to kind of get grooved out here on the clay. And then he would maybe play the winner of Cobolli or Darderi, and that would also be a little bit of a tricky match. But Zverev's the type of guy that can grind out a win against either of those guys and advance to the finals. So he would be my pick still to make it out to the finals. Let's take a look at the next half of the draw. Here's a look at Shelton's half of the draw, and only match we're going to talk about here is Blockx taking on Shelton. Let's talk about that Blockx match first against Hampman. Hampman coming out, and I felt like he had the right strategy, but he seemed to kind of move away from it towards the breaker. But he was using his all-around game, using the drop shot, not letting Blockx get very comfortable or settled in with his ground strokes, and I kind of liked that idea. Maybe he just wasn't comfortable doing it in some of the tighter situations, but I liked what I was seeing at the beginning. Hampman looked pretty solid. He was bothering Blockx a little bit, and towards the end of the first set, he started to try to go toe-to-toe with Blockx on the baseline, which we saw in Monte Carlo. not a lot of people had success with it. Even a guy like Cobolli, who's got that big forehand, went toe to toe with Blockx, and Blockx won out most of those points, and Hanfman able to win out, or sorry, Blockx able to win out most of those points against Hanfman in the tiebreak. A few too many errors from Hanfman, and these weren't like large misses. He missed by inches, on these shots. But I felt like there was that pressure that he felt like he had to come up with a little bit of a better shot because of the Blockx movement, because of the power behind the block shots if he's able to set up with the ball. So, second set, that first set kind of strategy of moving Blockx up and back, getting him a little bit in uncomfortable positions, that strategy seemed to go completely away, and Hanfman tried to go toe-to-toe with him. Didn't work there. I love what I'm seeing from Blockx, guys. I mean, he's really stepped it up. We talked about him, getting in. I think he got a lucky loser spot into the Australian Open. It didn't go as well, and that disappointed me a little bit because this guy's been playing very well on the Challenger Tour, and to see him finally step his game up and start to notch wins against higher players, higher ATP players, is what I've always expected from Blockx, but now everyone's finally seeing it, and tomorrow, or second round, next day, is going to be an extremely interesting match. Blockx is going to take on Ben Shelton, who was able to get through Emilio Nava, his best friend, today. And this match, I feel for Emilio Nava. I felt like he was playing really good tennis. Goes up a break early, breaks Shelton the first game of the third set. And you think, like, this is all Nava momentum. And Shelton breaks right back, gets a weird, like, funky bounce on the line to get the break right back. And that seemed to just, like, demoralize Nava a little bit. And Shelton's able to go up a break 4-2 and then hold on for a 6-3 win. For me, guys, Nava played so well in this match. I was impressed with it. He was able to finally get a break on the Shelton serve. I did feel like Ben Shelton had a ton of opportunities. 6 break points for him against the Nava serve, converted 2 of them, and those were the only 2 in the third set. But he was knocking on the door of Nava serve even in the first set, and even if they weren't getting him to the break point, there were at least 30 all games, deuce games. There were some really tough games that Nava just was able to come out of and play some strong tennis, play very aggressive tennis. He's got a big forehand, a big backhand. He moves very well. I was impressed with Nava. We had him picked to come through here over Shelton. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Ben just a little bit too tough on the day today. And Nava, those nerves and just like that disappointment, I think, of losing your momentum in the third, kind of took a little bit too much out of him to lose that third set. He looked phenomenal in the second set, though, just ripping winners past Shelton. Shelton in a much more defensive stance, blocking a lot of shots back. That's not where you want to be if you're Ben Shelton. If you're Ben Shelton, you want to be on top of the baseline. You want to be controlling the points. You don't want to be playing defense left and right. That's not going to be a very successful strategy for you on the clay. But good win for Ben Shelton here. He gets through 7-6, 3-6, 6-3 to advance to the round of 16. He takes on Alexander Blockx, and no head-to-head here for these guys. This is a huge opportunity for Blockx, and I'm kind of curious. We talked about how in some of these bigger moments, I just felt like Blockx wasn't able to convert. I wasn't sure if it was due to nerves or just like not being able to come up with the big shots at the big moments. But it seems like now he's starting to turn that corner a little bit and hit some of those bigger shots, take a few more risks, and get some of these wins. Blockx is 5-1 on the clay right now. That is just through Monte Carlo and Munich. 4-4 on the clay last year, 7-3 on the clay the year before. Shelton, on the other hand, is sitting at 2-1 on the clay, 7-5 last year, 8-4 the year before. He did make the finals of this tournament last year. As I mentioned before, no head-to-head from these guys. Just looking at this matchup, guys, I really want to pick Blockx. I love the way he's hitting. I love the way he moves. I like that, Shelton's return style isn't really suited to kind of challenge the Blockx serve. And we saw that a lot from Blockx today. He was holding serve with pretty relative ease. There wasn't a lot of pressure from Hanfman at all. And that really does help you. Like if you're holding at 40-15 or 40 love, that helps you a lot to put pressure on your opponent. So Block's able to do that. I think Shelton's going to have a hard time breaking this guy. The question just to me comes down to, is Blockx one going to be able to break Shelton twice to get maybe a straight set win or a 3-set win, or two, do we trust Blockx to beat Shelton in a breaker? And that to me, your answer to that question will answer whether you're going to choose Alexander Blockx or Ben Shelton. If you think that Blockx can beat Shelton in a breaker, because eventually we're going to have at least one breaker here. If you think that Alexander Blockx can beat Shelton in a breaker, then you got to pick Blockx. If you think that he can't, then you got to stick with Shelton. For me, guys, I think he can. I like what I'm seeing from Blockx. I noticed at the middle of that second set against Nava and then the first game, Shelton just very defensive. Nava getting him in like a little bit of tough positions there. What do you think Blockx is going to do? It's going to be the same thing. I feel like Blockx is going to force Shelton to play a little bit more defensive tennis, and he's got that game where Blockx can definitely take advantage of that. I'm going to go with Alexander Blockx here. I think he's going to get his first, well, Ben's ranked 6, so I guess I can't say top 5. I'll say he's going to get his signature top 10 win here. The Alexander Blockx train is coming full steam ahead here, guys. Give me Blockx to win this one in straights. And I'm kind of laughing here, guys, because I feel like people are probably thinking, are you just picking Shelton against Shelton every single match? And I don't mean to, but I'm telling you, these matchups are terrible for him. Let me look at let me just look quickly at his who he beat here in Munich last year. Gojo, okay. Van de Zandschulp, that's a nice win. He's playing much better tennis this year, though. Darderi, that's a solid win. We know Darderi was playing very clean there. Cerundolo in 3 and then lost to Zverev in straights. So not too bad, but I just feel like these guys, you have Nava, a guy that's familiar with his game. Now you have Blockx, who's going to come out. He's going to give you his biggest punch, and we'll see how Shelton handles that. Then you might have Rinderknecht or Fonseca. I mean, this is just not an easy draw for Ben Shelton. But let's look at the rest of this draw here, guys. Again, we did a breakdown of all of these in our first round picks or our draw reaction. So if you want a much more in-depth breakdown, you can go there and just click on the chapters. You'll get the full breakdown. I'll give you guys the cliff notes here for each of these matches. Griekspoor and Shapo, to me, must-win situation for Griekspoor. He's got to get back on track. Retired in that Dubai final against Medvedev. Didn't even play the final with an injury. He's got to find a way to get back on track. Has not looked great on the clay so far. Shapo, not a great clay quarter. This is a good match for him to get back on track. If he loses this match, guys, big time red flags. We got to be careful picking Griekspoor if he loses to Shapo on the clay. Maroszan and Tsitsipas. I think this is going to be. You guys know I cannot pick against Maroszan, or I cannot pick Maroszan. I have to pick against him. Tsitsipas, tough loss in Monte Carlo, a tournament that he's done well before, and I think he's going to have a lot of energy and anger, and he's going to channel that into beating Maroszan. This should be a pretty solid win for Tsitsipas to get through. Maroszan's had a pretty decent clay court season, but a lot of it has been by circumstance, so I don't know if I would credit him just yet. If he gets a win over Tsitsipas and then maybe Griekspoor, I think I would be happy to say Maroszan's playing really well on the clay. Cilic and Altmaier. I took Altmaier because I'm kind of curious about how Altmaier is going to be able to return the Cilic serve. If he's able to make Cilic play out longer points and move a little bit more on the clay surface, challenge that Marin Cilic movement where Cilic isn't able to do the serve +1 or return +1, then that's going to be an Altmaier match. But obviously, Altmaier's a little bit closer to the challenger level, so Cilic can step his game up and beat Altmaier. But I got to pick the guy that I trust on the clay, and that's going to be Altmaier there. Bublik and Molcan. Molcan, we remember having a good run a couple of weeks ago. He takes on Bublik. This might be a little bit of a tricky match. I think Molcan came through the qualifiers as well. We know Bublik sometimes can overlook some players, but he does have a lot of success on the clay. I think he's starting to rediscover it. Had that tough loss to Carlos Alcaraz in Monte Carlo, 6-3, 6-0. Not what we were hoping for, not the match we were hoping for. But I think he's going to get right here and be able to make it out to at least the semis. Fonseca and Tabilo. Final match here, guys. This was the match that I was just so angry seeing this. One, because my fantasy team had both Tabilo and Fonseca on it, so of course I had to drop one of them. But two, because these are two guys that I feel like are playing very well in the clay courts, and having them play first round, yeah, we're going to get an amazing first round match. But now one of these guys is going to be sitting on the bench for the rest of the week. And I feel like there's a lot more other guys that I would rather see sitting on the bench. I think Fonseca is going to get through here. He's already beaten Tabilo on the clay this year, so I think we're going to see more of the same from him. He's going to advance there. I'll say it's going to be in straights. He's playing much better tennis now as well than he was in the South American swing when he faced Tabilo. Looking at Shelton's half overall, I like Bublik to get through to the semis. He's going to have to overcome Griekspoor, though. If that's a quarterfinal, that's going to be a very tricky one. Remember, Bublik's already lost to Griekspoor this year. Granted, it was not on clay. It was on hard court, but that could still spell a tricky match for Alexander Bublik. And then on the other side, guys, honestly, there's nothing more I would love than a Blockx Fonseca quarterfinal. Give me the two guys that have had the most exciting clay court season. Maybe not the most successful quote season, but definitely the most exciting. They've got everybody's attention. Would love to see those two guys go at it with a chance to go to the semis and potentially face Bublik or Griekspoor. Let me know what you guys think. Would love to see your picks in the comments. Here's a look at our first round picks so far. 2-3 record, not great. Hopefully we're going to do a little bit better tomorrow. That's where the majority of the first round matches are going to be. We picked a couple of risky upsets there. They didn't come through, but hopefully we'll do a little bit better tomorrow. And guys, keep putting your picks in the comments there. Love to see your picks, and I'll give you guys a shout out too for all the guys. Honestly, everybody who's commented has been just very clutch on their picks. So we had somebody call out the center match straight sets. I was like, that's awesome, guys. So definitely keep putting those in there. I'll give you guys a shout out here in our record section. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We will have a video out every single day covering the Munich Open matches and going through the matches the next day and the day after. Looking forward to that. We also have a video out on the Barcelona Open, so definitely check that out to keep up on everything tennis. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.